With the recent announcement of the Sega Astro City Mini arcade machine, came the excitement of having 36 dedicated Sega arcade games at your fingertips. While only the first 10 games of this compilation were announced, we already have some provocative and noteworthy games like Dark Edge, Golden Axe: The Revenge of Death Adder, and Virtua Fighter. The former two because they've never been released at home before, and the latter for its implications of more 3D polygon support. This leads us to speculate what the other 26 games are going to be. I believe this is where the majority of the appeal of this machine comes from. If Sega can nail a few more big games in this lineup, that $120 price tag just might be justified. In this episode, I'm going to take a look at some games I want to see, cover the possibilities of others, and give my opinion on what we'll realistically get on this device once it's released. I hope you guys enjoy my Sega Astro City Mini wish list. First, I think it's important to set expectations properly for this episode. The subject of licensed games comes up all the time with compilation-style releases like this. I see people asking for stuff like Spider-Man, Moonwalker, Jurassic Park, and so on, but the reality is that we probably won't be seeing any of those. Securing a license to release games like this can be tough and expensive, and that doesn't even begin to touch the social implications of a game based on a figure like Michael Jackson. The truth is that Sega is far more likely to go the easy route and stick with games it already owns and has the full rights to. While I'd love to see some of these classics show up someday, the reality is we probably won't see it here. While we do not know much of anything about the hardware running in this thing, we need to keep our heads out of the clouds and keep expectations grounded. Since this will be doing Virtua Fighter, it's likely a bit more powerful than the boards we've seen in previous devices from Sega and Nintendo. It'll be emulating the Sega System 32 and Sega Model 1 at minimum, and that's something to celebrate in and of itself since Sega rarely touches these machines when it does releases like these. But again, we really need to keep our hopes and dreams realistic. This device only costs $120, and while I'm sure Sega will work hard to make these games as faithful as possible, I'm pretty positive that they'll still have the expected imperfections that budget emulation brings. There will likely be some latency issues in the sound and/or gameplay to these games. Most people probably won't notice, while others will immediately. Your expectations of this device will likely determine your opinion of it before you ever see, touch, or play it. Go in expecting these to be 100% arcade accurate, and I pretty much guarantee you'll be let down. Personally, as long as they get these games close, I'll be happy. The addition of Virtua Fighter of course invites more speculation as to what other 3D games could be on it. Just how far is Sega reaching here? Is it just the Model 1? Or will Sega go a bit further with the Model 2? Or will they even attempt the Model 3 or even perhaps the Naomi? The possibilities are truly tantalizing. Again, I am keeping things grounded and trying to keep my wish list within the realm of real possibility. With that in mind, I do not expect anything past the Model 2. This itself is still exciting as hell because there are so many great games that came to that platform. I think reaching for games on the Model 3 and Naomi is just going too far at this price point. I mean, if Sega was releasing this at $299 and calling it the ultimate arcade experience, maybe. But at this price point, no. I believe there will be more 3D games on this, but nothing past the Model 1 and Model 2. The last thing I'd like to bring up before we get into the actual wish list is the fact that this is a digital input device. That means that it lacks, as of now, any form of analog control. As we know, most driving games in the arcade use analog control to be more accurate. This brings about the question, does this mean we will not see arcade games that used analog inputs? While Sega could easily add digital control to these games, I do not believe that is the aim here. Sega will not be loading down this machine with the likes of Daytona USA and Sega Rally, and that goes for other games that use controls outside of a traditional arcade stick. We won't be seeing the Sonic arcade game or the weird and wonderful stuff like Title Fight. I won't go so far as to say I guarantee it, but the stuff we see here will likely only be games that always use digital control. Originally a Sega System 18 release, I think it makes sense for us to get Shadow Dancer. Alien Storm is already announced and it was on the same hardware, making it almost a shoo-in. Besides, Sega hasn't shown this one a lot of love in the past, making it a great addition here. Sega's take on the classic Mercs formula, Desert Breaker, was another System 18 release. Since this machine is aimed at the Japanese market, at least for now, I think a rarity like this is a real possibility. The original System 16 Shinobi is a classic Sega property that just has to be there. I mean, it's Shinobi, and other System 16 hits like Altered Beast are already announced. I'd say count on it. As much as I hate this game, I think Dynamite Ducks has a real chance here. It's another System 16 oddity that I believe Sega would actually add to this. I mean, it's two ducks fighting a sorcerer, and you can't get more Japanese than that. Well, you can, but you get what I'm saying. I think Sega's SWAT would be a great addition to this thing. Not only have we not seen this one at home in its original arcade form before, but it's also another System 16 title. It's a straightforward Sega-owned property, and I'd be happy to have it. Sega would be smart to diversify a bit, and Wrestle War is an easy choice. Sega owns the IP and it's different enough from all their other announcements to add the variety they'll think it needs. Not a top choice for me personally, but I think Sega will definitely add it. Guess what platform the very first Cotton appeared on in the arcade? That's right, Sega's System 16 arcade board. I believe that gives us a shot to get it here in all its original glory. I really like this game and it'd make a great addition to the library. Not well received or remembered, AM2's burning rival is going to be here as well. This was Sega's System 32 knockoff of Street Fighter, and while it's not a great game, it is definitely ripe for a release here. I mean, hey, at least one game needs to use all 6 of those arcade buttons, right? Sega has a few staples in its back catalog that are almost guaranteed. Gain Ground is one of them. It's a good game with a great soundtrack though, so I welcome it with open arms. We can trace Choplifter all the way back to Sega's System 1 board, and it'll be a fine addition here. We haven't seen Choplifter in a while either, so it's ripe for a comeback in 2020. There was a time when Wonder Boy went hand in hand with Sega. It's another System 1 game, and I think it fits this machine quite nicely. Sega needs some platformer representation, and it still has many fans who fondly remember it. Before there was Shinobi, there was Ninja Princess, a System 1 overhead run-and gun. It was called Sega Ninja in the arcade here, and changed the title to The Ninja for its Master System showing. I think it would go great in this lineup as a reminder that not all girls need rescuing. Side-scrolling horizontal shoot-'em-ups isn't exactly a genre that Sega owns a lot of, which makes Thunderforce AC here a great addition. It was recently brought out for a Sega Ages run, so it's fresh in Sega's mind. It's a decent game that diversifies the lineup quite a bit. You know it, I know it, hell, every grandmother in the world knows it. Puyo Puyo will be here just as sure as grass is green and the sky is blue. Pretty much a guaranteed addition.
Fire! Hey!
The question has to be posed, will we see Model 2 games here? I certainly hope so, and that almost guarantees a showing for Virtua Fighter 2. I mean, how could it not? This game is still beautiful even today, and would be mandatory if Sega has Model 2 support here. Did you guys know that the very first Dead or Alive by Tecmo ran on Sega's Model 2? It sure did, and with Sega and Tecmo's relationship being so close these days, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see it make a showing here. While we're on the subject of the Model 2, let's get some Dynamite Cop in on this. This 3D beat-em-up was known as Dynamite Deca 2 in Japan, and is the sequel to what most of us knew as Die Hard Arcade. I think it would make a really nice addition here, particularly as a two-player game. Sega had a great 2D beat-em-up on the System 32 called Arabian Fight, and I'd really like to see it here. Those screen-clearing magic attacks would look great on that little LCD screen, and it's multiplayer to boot. We can't forget that Sega has some really old-school arcade games that would fit nicely. I'd love to see some Zaxxon, the pseudo 3D space shooter from 1982. It has a unique blend of gameplay and visuals that would set it apart from the other titles quite a bit. Sega's Congo Bongo was another classic game from its early years that would go well here. It has a similar pseudo 3D viewpoint as Zaxxon, but it's now mixed with a little bit of Donkey Kong. Again, different enough to offer up some much needed variety. With the popularity of baseball in Japan, it has to have at least one of them here. Besides, of all the sports titles that Sega made for its arcade machines, Baseball was by far the most well represented. That's why I think we'll see the System 18 Clutch Hitter. This was essentially the arcade sequel to Super League, and I'd be happy to see it.
Out. Ball.
Sega's definitely gonna trot out Bonanza Brothers for this thing. It's the kind of game that's easy to play and was fairly popular in its day. It's 2 players as well. I'm not a fan, but I think Sega is in a good position to add DD Crew since System 18 support is already confirmed. It's an old school beat 'em up, and in the absence of Streets of Rage, it'll have to do. The Sega System E was sort of an arcade version of the Master System, and Transformer is long overdue for a showing. It was the basis of the home game Transbot, but had some variance in gameplay and visuals. I'd love to see it here. I also believe Sega will take this opportunity to drop Fantasy Zone 2 DX, the Tears of Opa Opa on us here. Remade for the System 16 by M2, this is the ultimate version of the original Master System release. It's seen only a few home versions since, and I think Sega would do well to include it. Given the popularity of the sport in Japan, a soccer game has to be on here. And with that in mind, I think the original Model 2 Classic Virtua Striker would make a great addition. It's a great looking and playing game, and if there is Model 2 support, I think Sega would be crazy not to have it. So there we are, 26 additional games for Sega's Astro City Mini. While some of these likely won't be here, I hope enough of them will be to give this thing a varied library of hits that will please a lot of people. I know some of you out there are clamoring for Model 3 and Naomi games to be on it, and some of you are thinking racing games, but I find this list to be far more realistic in the grand scheme of things. I don't discount anything, and I'm not saying there won't be some surprises. I'm just trying to keep my expectations in check and consider the stuff I have the biggest chance of getting. Sega's initial list of 10 games has some usual suspects, but also some games that really makes you think they have some more surprises to give us. Either way, it's an exciting time to be a Sega fan, and I'm really happy that this product exists at all. If they can get us a decent product here, I'm really hoping it's just a stepping stone for even more great releases in the future. I'm Sega Lord X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.